Over its now 25-year-long history, Beyblade is no stranger to unique gimmicks and powers, some of which have become fan-favorite staples to the hobby, and others should just be forgotten entirely. So in this video, we're going to be diving through Beyblade's 25-year-long history of weird powers, unique gimmicks, and just odd releases. So hit that like button, hit subscribe to join the Nook Nation, and now let's look at our very first weird Beyblade from almost 25 years ago. Tripio, the weird Bey that started it all. Originally released in the year 2000, this plastic gin Bey features a massive ring to defend against attacks, and that's it. That's the entire gimmick. In the anime, this Bey was used by Eddie, a member of the American team All-Stars. And of course, it works because it's an anime about battling spin tops. In real life, it was so comically large that it would just kind of implode on itself when it lost its balance. I could have mentioned a few other Beys from Team All-Stars, like the jumping Trigle, but this big dish of a Bey in Tripio needed to be in this video. Next on the list, we move further forward in time to the illustrious HMS era of Beyblades. This was the first line of Beys that featured metal contact points, a sort of grandfather to the current Beyblade X generation. These Beys were quite a bit more compact and simplified compared to the rather gargantuan G-Rev releases, but that does not mean there weren't any weird abilities just kind of thrown in there. The first one I want to mention is Aero Knight MS. This Bey features a big disc shape, once again, like Tripio, and it's also going for over $1,000 on eBay. So, I'm probably not going to get this Bey anytime soon. This was not the weirdest Bey in the HMS era, though. That award has got to go to Phantom Fox MS. This Beyblade had the ability to literally divide itself in half mid-battle, turning the match into a 2v1. If this sounds kind of familiar, that's because Takara Tomy would repeat this gimmick a few generations later during Beyblade Burst with Venom Diabolos and the Bullet Driver. The plastic generation, despite all its flaws, is where Beyblade was at its peak in creativity. Takara Tomy just kind of threw stuff at the wall to see what stuck, and that led to some of the most insane gimmicks and designs in Beyblade history. And some of those gimmicks exist even today. But then they kind of took a step back, and we entered into probably the least creative generation with Metal Fight. This video was all about some of the most weird and unique releases in Beyblade history. But if you guys want to get some of the latest Beyblades, go and check out sponsor the channel, Mall of Toys. They have some of the best X releases like Cobalt Dragoon, Dran Buster, and Wizard Rod up for sale right now. And they're also doing pre-orders for some upcoming Beys like Phoenix Rudder and Leon Crest. So go and check out Mall of Toys, links in the description down below, and make sure to use code ilinnuc to get 5% off. I know I'm probably going to get a ton of hate for saying that, but I really do think it's true. Metal Fight may be the most beloved generation of them all, especially by people who watch the show as a kid but aren't actually part of the Beyblade fanbase. This gen is where Metal Beys really took off, and because of that, Takara Tomy dialed down the craziness. And it was honestly kind of tough to find Beys that fit on this list, because the plastic gen, and especially Burst, seem so much wackier in comparison. But let's do our best and cycle through some of the odd ones. First up is Storm Capricorn. The spin track, Move 145, could shift into an off-center position, kind of throwing off the center of gravity, and the Quake tip is a flat tip, but with a giant chunk taken out of it. Whenever you combine the two together, you have a Bey that hops around pretty wildly. Next up is Flame Bixus, used by Zio in the anime. This Bey was overall nothing special, but it was the first time we had seen such a massive spin track with 230, making this Bey really tall for the time. Next up, we have the Beyblade Ultimate Custom Set El Drago version. This one was odd to me, not because there was any crazy abilities or gimmicks, but because we had three distinct versions of El Drago here. We had El Drago Absorb, which is the standard one that featured rubber, El Drago Assault, and El Drago Rush. I don't believe Rush or Assault ever actually appeared in the anime, so they're just alternate versions of Medio El Drago. Getting 3 different versions of the same bay with no plot significance is a bit odd to me, and it's not something we've seen again. Yes, we have gotten special color schemes with unique names like Holy Knight Valkyrie or something, but an entirely distinct bay? Pretty unusual. After that, there's really not much for MFB. Yes, there was some interesting stuff with 4D and especially 0G, but nothing I would consider odd, except for the final bays in the entire generation. Bays like Berserker Byakko, Guardian Garudas, and Phantom Fenrir. These releases are weird because despite appearing in the anime and having product codes, they never actually released at all. 0G really wasn't doing that well, so Takara Tomy just pulled the plug early, canceled the airing of the last several episodes, and canceled these bays. I actually have an entire video dedicated to the unreleased Beyblades, so if you want to learn more about these 0G bays, or about the canceled insect-themed Beyblade series, go and check that video out. Now we move on to the longest running and maybe most controversial series of Beyblade yet, with Beyblade Burst. Beyblade Burst introduced the burst mechanic to the game that added an extra layer of excitement and also anxiety. Anyways, the generation featured over 200 standard releases, and if we're specifically looking for the weird ones, I know exactly where to start. The first bay from the Burst generation we're going to look at is Screw Trident, the very last release of Beyblade Burst God. I'm adding this to the list because the gimmick was so dumb and useless, I just had to include it. The gimmick for the bay was a sort of rubber suspension. The plastic edge of the layer was connected to the center with a hard rubber piece, and that was supposed to absorb and nullify attacks. Obviously, this gimmick didn't work at all, and the bay was also rather burst prone as well. Moving to Season 3, with Beyblade Burst Cho-Z or Turbo, we get Revive Phoenix. This stamina type was used by Phi and has easily one of the coolest anime powers in the entire series. After sustaining a few big hits, the outer ring of the layer would pop off and be used as an extra weapon during battle, leading to some bay-destroying moments. In real life, though, it was also really cool. While we obviously couldn't telepathically control the ring to do a sick special move like in the anime, sometimes there were really exciting moments where it actually landed a pretty big attack. At worst, it was a fun, mid-battle gimmick that added some stadium debris. At best, you literally felt like a Beyblade anime villain. As we get deeper into Beyblade Burst, it seems like almost every release could fit on this list. At the end of Season 4, we got motorized drivers like Ignition. I don't hate this part, but man, it was impossible to make combos using this part look good. It was so bulky and kind of ugly, even if it was fun and a sort of callback to the engine gear system from the plastic gen. In Season 5, or Sparking, we got the infamous variant Lucifer, which once again brought back the barrier gimmick. Tripio, gone in 2001, born again in 2020. This gimmick worked by centrifugal force pushing these rubber tongues out to create a pink barrier. In the anime, this was awesome. In real life, not so much. The final bay I'll mention for Burst is Savior Valkyrie from Dynamite Battle or Quad Drive. This one is a bit more unique because it has 2 gimmicks. The first one is in the blade, where it actually can rebound and spring back into place. The second, and the more memorable one, is the Shot Driver. The Shot Driver was kind of similar to Reboot or Final Drive, in that there is a bit of a stamina tip at first, but with enough contact, a spring would trigger, making the bay do a tiny little hop before becoming much more aggressive. Cool in the anime, of course. Kind of useless fun in real life. Beyblade Burst has a ton of weird gimmicks and ideas. Some of them work, and some of them don't. There's so many, in fact, I'll probably have to make a second Weird Beyblades video just to go over them all. First one on the list, though, would definitely be the Quest Suction Cup Driver. And finally, we move on to our 4th and most recent generation with Beyblade X. Beyblade X has only been out for a little over a year at this point, so there aren't really that many bays, and even fewer of them have any sort of gimmick at all. The first one we could mention would be Wizard Rod and the disc ball bit, which features a yellow, kind of Tripio-esque disc on the bit itself. In comparison to the rest of the bays on this list, this piece isn't that remarkable. Compared to the rest of the X generation though, this piece really is unique. Next is Tyranno Beat. I love the design of this Beyblade so much, and we have the return of Quake. Similar in idea and design to Quake from Metal Fight, we have a tip with a chunk cut out of it, leading to some really unpredictable battles where yet again, the Beyblade can hop. After Tyranno Beat though, that's it. The generation is too new and basic at this point to have any wild or crazy gimmicks. Tripio from the Plastic Gen was supposed to make a return as an X remake, however, that project was cancelled. Despite Beyblade X being a rather new and rather simple series as of right now, I doubt it'll take long before Takara Tomy does something crazy. But those were some of the weirdest Beyblades in this series' 25-year-long history.